All right, everybody. Welcome to the very first Leadmore Live. That's what we're calling this, as we are in our beta test of the new Leadmore community. And I say beta test because we know we're doing it. It's going to exist, but we want to experiment and play with the different types of content around this topic of leadership and what people like. Is it bringing in outside guests who are on the Leadmore podcast with me? Is it looking inside at Lemonly and really kind of pulling down the curtain and seeing here's how we do things? Talking about different people's superpowers. We have lots of different ideas, visuals, of course, what we do at Lemonly. And today we're starting with an institution at Lemonly, a long-term employee, Morgan Larson. How are you, Morgan?
I'm doing well, John. How are you today?
I'm good. It's good to see your face in this
yes.
Zoom remote world. I got to see you this morning in a meeting, but
yes, good to connect those yellow walls behind you too.
Yeah, I'm at HQ, so it's me and the interns here today. So
awesome.
Yeah, so a couple guests are joining, and that's awesome. Hi, Ty. Hi, Jade. Good to see you guys. So we'll have questions later. We're still figuring this out. I'm probably gonna kick your video off. Sorry, Ty. We're still figuring that part out, but I'll put you. Let's see. I'm gonna stop your video, and you can just listen, and then we'll bring you on later if you have questions. What's up, Jade? Same for you. How are you? So today the goal was to talk about how we do one-on-ones at Lemonly. And I remember a couple of years ago, my CEO coach said that the one-on-one is the most important meeting in your company. He said, if you are a good leader, you recognize the power of those meetings, even at 15, 20, 30 minutes, whatever they are, to move your whole company forward. Because whether you're 18 like us, or especially if you're 1800, and there's just a series of one-on-ones, you can't be everywhere. You got to be able to scale your vision, scale your ideas, scale your processes and systems. And to do that, you need to do it through people, which starts with the one-on-one. And do you remember, early days, how often would you and I meet, like when you first started?
Oh gosh, I remember when I was an intern, you actually came to me and were like, I think I've never done a company meeting before. Could you help me get the whole company in a meeting? So that was the first time we even did that. I would say one-on-one, we definitely because we work so closely together, we definitely met, but there was not an official cadence, I think, until only a few years ago. I would say.
Probably I'm a little embarrassed how long it probably took. I mean, we had a lot of at the end of a client call.
Yeah,
in a room.
I was gonna say
stuff, but
we definitely met. It just wasn't every Monday at this time we're gonna meet. That took a while for us to actually formally work out. But we definitely met though.
And I think one thing people may be thinking is how often should you do a one-on-one meeting? Because that's a lot of books, a lot of the business books I really love, we read as a management team, the Making a Manager, which is great. Radical Candor, also a good one. We just had Kim Scott on the podcast. It say weekly, and I remember we were all whoa, it's kind of a lot. And Lemonly in general is probably on the scale of meeting culture, we're probably on the less meetings more than more, and try to be cognizant of that, especially now in a remote world. What do you think about how we do it bi-weekly? How do you feel like that fits for you?
I like bi-weekly, and we do it an hour at a time for bi-weekly. So It probably would be equivalent if we did 30 minutes weekly.
Sure.
But I like the little bit larger time blocked off in order for us just to talk things through. And it seems like I almost have more intention when it's a little bit longer, knowing hey, there's a lot of things I want to make sure we talk about. I don't know. It seems like a little bit more of a big deal versus just, it's a weekly thing. I can push it. It's not a big deal or something like that.
Yeah. I got so excited. So I should probably back up and let you introduce yourself in terms of your title at Lemonly and what you do here. So go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. So now I'm the Director of Business Development. I wore a few hats through the 8 years that I've been here. But that is my current role. And we work a lot closely together, obviously, with a lot of our sales and business development efforts now as a team.
Yeah. So what, intern, project manager? I think at one point we had community manager
and marketing manager, director of communications, now director of biz dev. So I of course, with a small company, if you guys are parts of one, that you kind of do a lot of different things as you've been there. So I'm part of that too.
But you definitely have worn the most hats of anybody, for sure.
Maybe, yeah, probably. But yeah, so it's been a fun ride.
Cool. And I think that's relevant because it's in a one-on-one meeting when you can start to learn these types of things, right? Like
Yeah.
we've had pretty open, honest conversations about where you want your career to go and what, what you want to do when you grow up and, all those type of things that I think are important for the one-on-one. So let's get into the framework. And then I want to get your opinion on how you run a one-on-one with, since you're now a manager as well.
Sure.
And then we can take questions if anybody has them. So, I started sort of adopting frameworks because I like it as an ability to teach other people the way you want to think and then the way that they can then teach other people. And so they often like sound fancier than they probably are. They're just little simple drawings. But I think it also helps you kind of like wrap your head around a concept. Obviously it's very Lemonly-esque, right? You use a visual. So we at Lemonly use the 4 C's of what we say a great one-on-ones. The first C is to care. And I wanted to bring you onto this call so we can like kind of live out how I follow that framework because it's pretty organic. It's certainly not formulaic, right? So the first one, care. And I would say in a one-on-one, one of my first goals when we talk is to just ask you how you're doing, right? And so we will start with like, I think for anybody listening, I do all my team meetings on Monday. So we do our Monday team meeting, all hands. I do all my one-on-ones. I try to do all meetings with internal Lemonly people on Monday. So Monday's like my team day, which is great, I think, for my brain because coming back out of the weekend, don't have to talk to clients yet. You can just talk to your own team and batch that all together. So I'll usually start with like, how was your weekend? Or how's Eric doing? How's your puppy, right? So like, what's a way, like, how do you think about that? Do you feel like we're able to create that connection even in a virtual world?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I think that's sometimes that part, it can be long or short, but it's always nice to connect. And I want to know the same thing about you and how your weekend was and how the kids are doing. So yeah, it's a great way to just segue into the meat of the meeting, but also just check up on each other individually, especially with kind of being remote, obviously this whole summer. It's nice to be able to, we don't maybe have as much of that office chat that we normally would when we sit next to each other. So it's a good chance for us to do that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think sitting here on this leadership show and tell people that you should care about your people, like sounds kind of obvious, but it's true, right? Like if we don't establish a level of care that I invest in you as a person, as a human, not as an employee, all the other things that follow just aren't really going to matter that much, or you're not going to give your best, or like we're always been pretty explicit culture-wise that we say Lemonly is a team and not a family, but that doesn't mean I don't care about you and your family and I want to know about it. And so,
totally.
So the first goal there is you establish that you care about them as a person and that you're invested. Then we talk about celebrate. And those are a little bit similar because they're all positive and fun, but we often, after we move past, the small talk, which is not small in purpose, but small in like conversation, then we get into wins. And so what's an example of something like how we would start that?
Yeah, so that's always the first thing on the agenda that you and I follow that we fill out week to week is we start with those wins. And I think I tackle it 2 ways. Sometimes I tackle it on something that I think was a win for you that I saw you doing and I wanted to give you props on. But I also do it for myself if something happened within my team or personally, if I hit a goal or something like that. It's a nice way. I like that we just, in our agenda, we literally just title it wins. And I like that it's just truly celebrating both things that both of us accomplished or the company as a whole. So it's a good way to start it off.
Yeah, and I think we probably were guilty of this in the early days when you were there and there was like 6 of us. We started to grow from like 1 room to 2 rooms, and all of a sudden sometimes you didn't know what people were working on.
Yeah,
and that
totally.
sounds almost embarrassing, but like at 7, 8, 9, 10, we were already missing out on things, which is good from like a scale operation things, but bad from like a celebrating thing. And I always use the line that we're probably not too great at celebrating our wins here in the Midwest anyway, right? No one's in it. Lemonly is like, look how great I am and look what I did. And so this is a time in that one-on-one where I can tell you like, awesome job launching that new campaign, great work on setting up the internship program, nice job on selling that big new project, right?
Totally. Yeah. And I think it's nice to have to self-reflect. Like you said, I feel like Midwest humbleness. It's nice to be able to go, okay, what did I do that I need to celebrate myself too, as well as the rest of the
I think
team.
in the one-on-one, it's almost good as a manager too. Like I imagine you feel probably, I don't know if pressure is the right word, but like you can't have that empty,
No.
right? Like
nope,
you
I
have to have
agree.
something in that feel.
Definitely. Yeah.
So after we've established care and now we celebrated the wins, then it's probably the hardest one, the one that we're working on, which is challenge. So like, I think the goal as a manager is to make sure that you're always pushing your people that little 1% further. Like, how can you do it? look back on what you just did. How would you do it differently? How could you do it better? I challenge you to get that done by next week, or so we don't directly have challenge on the agenda, but maybe like, I think the manager book that we read says the biggest job a manager can do is how can I eliminate, barriers for you? How can I make your job easier? Which is also mean I'm going to challenge you to go further, to go faster, to do better.
Yeah, and we have some nice. I like in our specific document. I have questions for myself to answer, like what do I need help on, and those are the types of things that I think back on. And when I think back of maybe what did you challenge me on in past one-on-ones, and what do I need to move forward with, and how can we work together? What can I use your help on? I think that's part of that too, and to me, the challenge part is probably almost the newest in our one-on-ones, or at least like
I agree.
And I have to think about it too when I also do them, is to remind myself of, oh yeah, we got to help build each other and push that 1%. So, but yeah, I think for us, the nice opportunity for me is to, what could I use your help on, and just what other things you should know. And in those two instances, that's where you come and say, okay, that's really good that you said that, and now I challenge you by next time, let's make sure that this happens, or getting some accountability there, which is really helpful.
Yeah, and I think in general, it's important to know, we think of these one-on-ones as like, I try to think of it as your meeting, right? Like
Yes.
This is your hour you get with me every 2 weeks. Now, granted, in a small company, you can get other time with me too pretty easily. But if not, if some people are not very accessible, that's the 1 hour that's so crucial. And so, although it's your meeting, I see the challenge part as like my job to make sure that you're not bored, you're not too comfortable, you're not, like just skating by. Like, that's the point of the meeting, to challenge, which then leads in really nicely to the last one, which is commit. And the commit to me is just the accountability piece of like, okay, we celebrated this, pushing you to do that. Now, when are you going to do it by? So like, give me the deadline, give me how many leads, how much sales, how many, sales calls are you going to schedule? Those, like, what's the metric and what's the accountability? Has that helped? Because we didn't used to do that.
Yes, I think that's huge. And I think for us, we even have just the to-do steps below that then I work to fill out myself once we talk. And when I hear the keyword of, hey, when can you get that done by? And then we can commit to each other of when I can, when you can expect results, or when I can report back on something. So yeah, that's been, I think, aside from obviously integrating challenge in there, I think the action steps to do items, things like that, that's been a really nice part, because I think the both of us are really good at talking about things, but I'm guilty of not always acting on them and doing that. So this part has helped me with that aspect.
Yeah, no, and I'm in that boat too. And so having somebody to because even those to-dos, if sometimes I have to-dos from our one-on-one, and so then I know that, like, I don't want to go 2 weeks from now and have that still be sitting there, as a to-do. So
definitely.
Do you have the document open, or do you want me to open that up?
Let me see.
So what we're going to do next, as we transition, we want to show what this looks like in action. And so for those listening, Ty, Jade, we can bring you on if you want to ask questions. And we're recording this too, of course, so all people in Leadmore can watch this later. What we do is have a framework, a Google sheet, simple sheet, nothing too fancy. And I'm trying to get into my password here too, so that I can have it open for us.
I can share my screen if you want me to.
You have it? Go for it.
Yep.
Do I have to make it? All right. So the important part there was that it is the direct reports meeting. It's their meeting to run, and thus their agenda to own and to control. And so it's important that they know this is my time, but they also, there's not pressure, but like an accountability to, like, when we call at 1:30 on Monday, this is going to have something in it, right? Like, it's your meeting, so what's important to you? And we talk about that framework, but it isn't as simple as like, okay, now we're going to go from the care phase to the celebrate phase, or now we're going to go from the celebrate phase to the challenge phase. We follow this agenda. So maybe just talk me through, we hit on a lot of these, but how you fill this out. How long does it take you? When do you do it? Do you do it throughout the week? Do you do it right before? I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's something that if something pops up in my mind, if I should talk about this in one-on-one, I'll add it to my doc. But I'm sure at least 30 minutes to an hour before a one-on-one that I make sure and go through it again and add any other additional context and questions for it. Especially, I like to do a little bit more before, because I know you like to look at it before we meet as well. So that's something I like to get done usually that Monday morning, and then we meet that Monday afternoon. And yeah, it's nice. It's a nice reminder, even having the prompts here, reminding like, what does a win mean? And what's unclear? What do you want to know? The questions part, those types of things are really nice to know. I like that there's a little bit of a framework here with what questions we go through every week. So then if something does pop up in the 2 weeks that we're not meeting, then I know I can add it to here.
Yeah, and you can see the 4 C's pretty clearly throughout. So right, wins, celebrate. Questions is really that challenge. Whether you have a question for me, I have a question for you. What do I need help on? Challenge. I love this next one. You put this in the very first time we started this, and I love that's certainly a lesson at Lemonly. And I would say all people in Leadmore should take as well, as this, the better every day, right? The constant improvement. Nothing that we do is finalized or set in stone. So I remember you just added like life, the universe, and everything. And it's kind of our catch-all. Like sometimes you'll be like, hey, I went golfing this weekend and I had this like awesome shot, right? And we just talk about like whatever that was, because we care. And so I love that one, and just the way you've titled it. Things you should know, which kind of that challenge, accountability piece. And then rock talk. For us, rocks are our big goals that we have each trimester at Lemonly. So that's definitely the commit part as well. And then the to-dos from there. So yeah, I mean, powerful, but pretty easy, right? How long does it take you to do?
Oh gosh, no, it doesn't take any more than 10, 20 minutes to fill out. And I would say 20 minutes on just like a bigger week. So it's not anything too heavy of a lift for me by any means, but I also know that it's my meeting. So if it's an empty agenda, then it's not going to be a very long meeting and not really worth either of our time either. So.
Yeah. And we almost always, even if it feels less like lighter, we almost always fill the hour pretty easily.
I was going to say, I don't think there's ever been a time that we ended less than the hour. So we
before. Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we kick to, if Jade or Ty or any of the people in the call want to ask a question, we'll let you. But first I want to hear how you do, if you do this any differently, and I'm putting you on the spot here, and even Nick, who reports to you, is in the call, so we can get real talk from him. But do you have any, what I just said, similar to how you do it, any twists or turns that you put on yours?
Yeah, no, this actually is a very similar format that Nick and I follow. Nick has everything in Trello, which I actually really like, and is something that we use Trello more and more as a company. And I know Nick's been a Trello fan for, I think, maybe his whole life. So he's a Trello whiz. And actually, I really enjoy having it there.
Nick's older than Trello. But.
Well, no, but I don't care. It's been a part of his soul, like organization and cards.
True.
But yeah, I think that's the part that's different when Nick and I do it is it's his meeting. He lives in Trello. We go through Trello, but I actually really enjoy it because you can tag people with to do. So I actually think that's something I might implement with ours moving forward. I used to live in Google Docs, but I'm trying to get to Trello more.
Yeah.
But I like that there's, I think it's okay that everyone has different tools that they kind of love and navigate towards. So if it's your meeting, you should own where that lives. To me personally, I think that. So that's the part that's, I think, a little different with Nick and I, is just where it lives. But honestly, all of these sections are in some vein in the meeting as well. So it's something, when I started as a manager, I feel like one-on-ones where I was a little bit scared of them, and now it's something that I really look forward to, and empower people to own them, just like you empower me to own mine as well.
Yeah, because off the top, right, like let's see how many people report to me now. So like the 4 one-on-ones that I have, alternating 2 and 2 every other week, are probably the most important meetings I have, because then even if I have a meeting with you, the power that you can then take that to the people that report to you as well, and we're really moving the company forward. So
totally.
If anyone has a question, feel free to, I think you can raise your hand in Zoom, or you can put it in the chat, or we'll even bring you up on camera if you want to ask it. As we're waiting for that, I'll even say a couple kind of wrinkles, or maybe best tips, pro tips, when possible and healthy and safe. One thing I like to do is to mix up sort of where these meetings happen. Sometimes it's over coffee. We've done lunch. We've done a happy hour, right? I think even in a Zoom world, sometimes we don't do Zoom and we just do the phone and we both have gone walking, you know, and you can hear the birds and you can talk. And I think that's important both for just, you know, when you can safely face-to-face connections, but, you know, if it's over food, breaking that up a little bit can always be nice to, like, you know, share a meal or a snack or a coffee. So I think that's a pro tip that I recommend. One thing I'm working on, and I know sometimes leaders are guilty of this, we fill a lot of silence. You know, we like to talk, and, you know, sometimes letting the meeting breathe and letting you think. If we get to that challenge part, or if we get to that accountability part where the topics can get heavier or more weighty, and it's my job to pose like tough questions to you, but then it's also my job to like shut up and just let you listen, or let you talk and let myself listen.
Sure.
Jade, let's see. She has a question. Love the format. Do you guys save them each week? I feel like it would be really fun to look back on during annual reviews. Do you? Because with Google
Yeah.
Sheets, it often gets replaced, or do you just push it down?
I just push them down. So actually, yeah, because I love to look at them week to week, or even look back at the old agenda. So for me, in my Google Sheet, I just make new roles. So there's a bajillion rows, I think, with ours. And I know with Nick and I in Trello, he has a kind of a place to put the cards for past meetings as well. So I would recommend
one card per week per meeting, or is it four
one
cards
card per to do, and then there's just, it's a long list of different things that we've talked about. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, there, but yeah, I do like having it for, especially when thinking of annual reviews. It is nice to have all the things you've talked about in one place, especially when thinking about wins, but also just challenges and things throughout the year. So yeah, that's a really good thing to talk about and maybe remind people, is if you can keep some sort of a record from your agendas, it does serve as a really nice tool to look at for growth throughout the year.
Cool. Tyrell says, we've started using Fellow as a tool last week. Haven't heard of that. Even it has some prompt questions you can ask during one-on-ones. That's cool. And you can email the notes to each other. I always like prompt questions are great. Like I've seen, you know, in our role, you and I kind of head up the sales just for Lemonly. I've heard there's a thing called like battle card questions, like great questions to ask in sales, like to new clients and prospects. And even like we've done some of that stuff during one-on-ones. Those type of questions can be really powerful. So, and I love, this is my hope too with Leadmore, of this community, is that iterative like sharing that we all have. So like, I could see us learning from somebody in the group. They're like, oh, let's do that. Let's change that up. And, you know, I think the 4 C's is a framework that lives on top of any type of format. The 4 C's is like intentionally not very limiting, but it allows you to make it a Zoom call, a check-in, a one-on-one, Trello, Google Sheets, whatever. So
yeah, I'm interested to see what Fellow looks like. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah. Any other questions, Nick? Any questions you want to ask your manager here on the spot about how she can run her meetings? Ty just linked it up, fellow.app, so we'll check that out. But otherwise, yeah, do you feel like you can truly say you've gotten better in your role or job through one-on-ones? And this is not like a softball question, because I didn't tell you I was going to ask you it.
No, definitely. I think especially just having the time to talk through things with you individually, that sometimes through Slack we could maybe get done, but sometimes I save things for our one-on-ones because I know I just want to like hash something out or talk something out. And I think without that time, I could limp by and get through some things with a quick Slack question. But the fact that I know that I have a little bit of your time to go through has helped me. And sometimes I let myself, now I make myself ask you in that format versus just waiting and just saying, I'll figure it out later. So yeah, definitely. I think it's helped me in a lot of different ways.
And I think on that same point, in my role as the leader, and I still have to sometimes put myself in check here, but it's helped me say like, okay, I know I'm talking to Morgan on Monday. I'm not going to, this thing isn't a now thing. This isn't like a put out a fire thing. I'm not going to Slack you and just be like, hey, what about this?
Yeah.
Because, you know, that's how I definitely used to be. And still sometimes break my rules, like that true, like asynchronous versus synchronous work. And like, you know I'm going to have your time for an hour every other week. And unless it's like urgent, it might as well just live in that meeting. And exactly. Then I'm keeping you clear to do your job. I'm not micromanaging. I'm not like, you're not, because sometimes when requests come from the boss, a spur of the moment, it can be a little bit like, whoa, or like throw you off, or like, what does he want? Or what's John looking for? And so I try to get better at that. Mm-hmm. Nick's is, how do you keep the balance between talking about shared projects, meaning things that we're working on together, and more of the big picture stuff, mentorship goals, long-term? What do you think is the right balance?
Gosh, that's something that I struggle with sometimes, because it is sometimes like a nice just place for almost like not a status update, but check-ins. And I do think we've gotten maybe better about some long-term goal things, but that's not something that's on the agenda every week by any means. So I don't know if we've maybe found a true balance. I do think it is good that we have our biweekly one-on-ones, but we also have our trimester reviews. And in my head, that's kind of where those conversations maybe come more into play. And then if there's some trickle down to do's from it, then they can pop up during one-on-ones. But and that's maybe sometimes my fault. I don't think as big picture sometimes as I should. So that's, I guess, how I maybe view them differently.
Yeah, I would say if you are the manager in the meeting, which again, it's not your meeting, it's your meeting, have space for that to happen organically, if that's where you want to take it. I would say sometimes I look at the meeting agenda, 5 minutes before, and I can tell it's going to be more of a tactical meeting based on what you put in there. Like, we got to tackle this, we got to solve this, this will have a yes or no, and off we go. But then we've had times where, like, unexpectedly, we've ended up talking about like your career and your life and jobs that you want to have either at Lemonly or not at Lemonly, right? Like, and that wouldn't have happened. You probably weren't going to put that in the agenda. So just
sometimes
giving it space.
It's organically. Yeah, I would say that too. Yeah, and I think that's something I still need to work on, as well as both with you and Nick with you, of finding that balance. And I like the idea of giving room for it, at least to breathe and grow if it organically comes up too. Yeah,
and that's one thing I probably struggled with. I had to split. I tried at one point to do almost like all my one-on-ones on a Monday. And then you guys all knew that it would be like, okay, John's 30 minutes late with Ashton, so now I'm 30 minutes late, and that got a little out of hand. And so, like, trying to, buffer, like, allocate the right amount of time with a little bit of buffer in case you have one of these really great conversations that starts to, go that way.
Totally.
So you want to be efficient, but you don't want to just jam those all back to back to back.
Definitely. So, yeah, I like the breathing room is good.
Yeah. Well, this is great. And I think this is an awesome first run. Morgan, thanks for coming on and talking about one-on-ones. And it's actually really fun to hear your perspective, because I love always getting in the Wayback Time Machine and having you talk about Lemonly. One, you have a better memory than I do, but two, like, you think about things differently. And so then I'm like, oh shit, that's how we used to do it. I can't believe we've come so far.
Yeah. Definitely. No, these frameworks have been such a huge help, and I think shows the maturity of our company and things. So it's been fun to be a part of the ride.
Yeah. So if you're watching it live, thank you. Thanks for coming on and for the questions. That's super great. If you are watching this recorded, for all this stuff in the Circle group, it's called Circle, that platform we're using, we want your feedback. So what we're doing over this first month of Leadmore is just going to test different types of content and see what people respond to, see what they like. The hope here is that it's sort of, we let down the curtain, very authentic, this is exactly how we do it. There's no secrets. Also, if you're a member of the Leadmore community, that document that we just showed is part of our designing company culture course, which you get access to as a member of the community. So if you want that, you can go get that. I just need to add you to that space. And yeah, we're just trying lots of different content. So as you watch this, recorded or live, give us your feedback, let us know. And we'll be back next week too for another one. David O'Hara, who we've just recorded a future Leadmore podcast episode, is going to come back, and he's going to unpack his superpower of how he reads 330 books a year. So we talked about it on the podcast, and just kind of like, he just like briefly glossed over it. And then afterward, I was like, wait a minute. We have to talk about how you read 330 books a year. And I didn't expect this whole like mechanical answer that's like very processed and very like specific. And so I was like, can you come back and tell us more about that? So that's what we're going to do next week, and it'll be recorded in the community as well. So thanks again, Morgan, for coming on. Thank you everybody for joining. Have a great Wednesday afternoon.
Thank you, John. Awesome. See you guys later.